and thanks for joining us for another edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Well, youth justice and some other criminal matters will soon be handled differently in Kenora. An opening ceremony was held Monday for a new Justice Centre, bringing together Ontario's Attorney General, the province's Chief Justice, and the top Indigenous leaders from this region. Lee Noonan reports.
The Kenora Justice Centre is one of a kind, designed specifically for the city in partnership with local Indigenous leaders and elders. Hopes are high for the new facility, with officials setting ambitious goals to address the root causes of crime, foster healing, and integrating Indigenous culture and ceremony.
The opening of the Kenora Justice Centre marks a significant opportunity to address some very real challenges, including the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the local jails and the remand population, the lack of justice services for Indigenous youth and young adults in Kenora, and the dislocation of Indigenous people involved in the criminal justice system.
This is just the beginning of something special. We need more justice centers. We need more lawyers. We need more compassion.
Aside from the courtroom, the centre will also house a variety of services, including elder supports, mental health and health care, and social services.
And it's respecting diversity. It's respecting people's way of going through not the greatest systems at all times, but marrying those supports for all of our people.
And providing them with the physical presence of all of the support systems you could possibly think of. To help families, to help victims, communities, and the offender themselves.
Is going to be doing justice differently, and as Greg said, it's very different. This is a very unique space and an entity in North America. I would challenge, if not beyond its borders.
With thousands of meetings held over 6 years, the plan for the centre is a result of extensive consultation between justice, government, and Indigenous stakeholders. Anishinaabe protocol has guided much of that work, including the naming of the building. Gananagatawa Bandang, translated as the one responsible to review, consider, and deliberate.
Hopefully that, whatever decision comes out of proceedings here, that, there's going to be mutual benefits for people, and help them along the way, find their healing path and find their way back to who we are as Anishinaabe people.
Among others, all youth matters are being diverted from the courthouse in Kenora to the Justice Centre here. The first of those matters is going to be heard on February 28th. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission has backed off an unpopular proposal to merge two northwestern Ontario ridings. The proposal was widely panned by residents and all three major political parties. And it appears the commission listened, according to its report tabled in the House of Commons Friday. Ryan Benazzo has the details.
Area residents had some strong reaction to the Federal Electoral Commission's plan to merge two northwestern Ontario ridings ahead of the next federal election.
We do not find much merit in what you have proposed.
It is ludicrous.
And now, according to a report tabled at the House of Commons today, the idea has been scrapped.
They seem to listen to us, and so I'm really happy about that.
Had the plan not been altered, the ridings of Thunder Bay Rainy River and Kenora would have merged. Liberal Marcus Pulowski and Conservative Eric Melillo may sit on opposite sides of the political aisle, but on this issue they're united, saying it would have been tough for the remaining member to properly represent all of their constituents.
Had we remained grouped in with Kenora, it would have resulted in 20,000 constituents like 500 kilometers away, and it would have been hard to get over there and would be hard for them to talk to their MP.
They really heard the concerns that were expressed from people across our region, and that it looks like they made every attempt to try to rectify that. Of course, there's always going to be a bit of discussion about some of the specifics, but I think overall that they certainly got it right.
Under the proposed boundaries, Melillo's riding will be renamed Kenora Kiwetanung, but it remains largely intact. Pulowski still notes there will be some northern representation lost in the legislature.
It's good for the people of northwestern Ontario. Unfortunately, though, I can't say the same for the people of Northern Ontario as a whole, because Northern Ontario has lost one seat. So I'm unhappy with that fact.
That lost riding is in the Sault Ste. Marie area. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
A major fire at a seniors living facility in Sioux Lookout has displaced dozens of elderly residents last weekend. Emergency responders were called to the fire at Patricia Plaza on Saturday, and the OPP says all residents were evacuated without injury. Officials with the Kenora District Services Board say the fire was contained to one wing of the building, which resulted in the loss of 11 apartments. The remaining 26 apartments were saved. The KDSB later said that all residents have found alternative shelter, either with family members or through community partners, and they're now working to get some of those residents back into the undamaged portion of the facility. Anishinaabe Nation says they've been shut out of the federal-provincial talks regarding health care funding. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with the provinces in Ottawa this week regarding a significant increase in the health care transfer. But First Nations have been left out of the process, and NAN leaders held a news conference in Thunder Bay on Tuesday to express their frustration. Jonathan Wilson reports.
It is not an understatement to say this is a matter of life and death.
NAN Grand Chief Derek Fox says people in his 49 communities are severely disadvantaged when it comes to health services.
The NAN communities are in crisis. I am constantly hearing from chiefs about the challenges to their community members face with accessing health.
So now, as health funding discussions are happening between federal and provincial leaders, NAN officials say they're extremely disappointed about being left out. Former Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler is now the NAN lead for health system transformation.
We are not inside the room. We are outside. I think it says a lot. And that's why we're here today, to remind our government partners of the agreement that they signed with NAN in 2017, that in order for all of us to fix the system in our communities, we need to be there. We need to be active partners.
We should be there. NAN should be there. We all need to be at that table. We should not be an afterthought.
Fox points out that during the pandemic, NAN worked hand in hand with Ottawa and the province to bring COVID vaccines quickly and efficiently to remote First Nations. They also worked well in delivering a new mental health tool and 50 extra public health nurses.
But they are making these 10-year plans without us. We have demonstrated that when we work together, we can come up with real solutions to real problems. When NAN was able to work together with the federal government and the province, we were able to come up with vaccines very quickly and efficiently. And great things occurred, great things happened.
Fiddler says the current situation shows a major failure on Ottawa's part, and he directed his disappointment squarely at Justin Trudeau.
If the Prime Minister is serious about reconciliation, his message around, that the most important relationship that's important to him is with the Indigenous people, it doesn't show. Like his actions speak otherwise.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Minus 35-degree weather may provoke groans here in much of the region, but in Flying First Nations, you're more likely to hear a sigh of relief as 2 weeks of frigid temperatures have finally allowed the winter roads to open in most communities. The Martin Falls and Fort Severn roads are still under construction, but most winter roads in the region are now open to at least light traffic, with some open to heavier trucks and 6 communities open to full loads. Muskrat Dam is one of those communities. Special Projects Manager Roy Fiddler is responsible for the 80-kilometer stretch of road leading to his community. He says they've been able to increase loads with every crossing of the Severn River, and on Thursday night, they were able to finally bring a full load of diesel weighing about 80,000 pounds.
Everybody's relieved that it's happening again. So that 2-week cold snap there really helped us. So it's good to see that the semis are rolling in again. Getting really busy with everybody hauling in their gas, their diesel, housing supplies, what have you.
The weather has warmed up again, and Fiddler is encouraging people to travel the roads at night when the temperatures drop. Still, he's hopeful the roads will remain open well into March. We'll be back in just a moment with a report on Northern food security with a program that is receiving millions in new funding. Welcome back. Food Security Initiative for Remote First Nations is getting a $4.5 million boost from Ottawa. The program is distributed through KCATS, which also inked a Memorandum of Understanding with Lakehead University this Thursday. Jessica Clement has the details.
The federal government is investing $4.5 million over 18 months in food security for 5 remote Matawa First Nations.
So there's Webequie First Nation, the Skandiga First Nation, the Betamik First Nation, the Yamatong First Nation, Martin Falls First Nation.
The money is going to KCATS, an employment and training services agency, for the administration of its Harvester Support Program, which allows remote communities to access nutritional foods and other staple purchases here in Thunder Bay, where the items aren't so expensive. KCATS Executive Director David Negan says many people take food security for granted.
We have so much opportunity in terms of buying adequate food, and in our northern communities that in terms of the produce and the meats and so forth that are available to them, that it's very limited because it has to be flown in. And the cost of food is just extremely high.
What KCATS and Matawa has been able to do to launch and to try to advocate for this type of program, it really does go back to the community. It is about our people. It is about being able to do that in our own communities, in our own settings, in our own traditional means.
KCATS has also signed a Memorandum of Understanding with Lakehead University to help Indigenous people access education and training opportunities.
We're really looking at how we can complement each other and to work together on the needs coming from KCATS rather than certainly not what Lakehead has. And we do have programming that community members can take advantage of already, and we can look at that. But it's really talking about how can we add on to what's already going on, and that's how the MOU allows us really to, or provides that avenue for us to have those discussions.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
An Indigenous youth-led charity, Feathers of Hope, received a big donation on Friday. More than $25,000 was handed over, and the money was all collected through the sale of Every Child Matters flags and T-shirts. Superior Strategies, which is also 100% Indigenous owned, has been selling the merchandise since 2021. Jason Thompson says he wanted to do something in response to the discovery of mass graves at former residential school sites across the country. Feathers of Hope is an organization that strives to give Indigenous young people the tools to help build a healthy and safe community.
Well, I think they're an organization that's also, looking to find their place in the city and really, grow some awareness, right? The fact that, again, they're supporting our Indigenous youth are important, and it's a big part of who we are. And if we can help support them, give them some extra dollars that, they might not have access to, we're happy to do that, because the messaging and what the organizations stand for is near and dear to my heart.
It's amazing. It's very exciting because everything that we want to accomplish, it makes it that much easier now. Day by day, we're making things happen, and when the community comes together and makes such a generous donation like this, it really is affecting the lives of youth.
Lagarde says this donation will be put toward the creation of a Feathers of Hope podcast to spread the group's message even further. Every Child Matters t-shirts and flags are still available for purchase through Superior Strategies. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa was in Toronto last weekend to welcome and congratulate Marit Stiles as the new leader of the Ontario NDP. She officially took over the reins on Saturday. Stiles was acclaimed following an uncontested leadership race. The MPP for Toronto's Davenport riding takes over the top opposition role from Andrea Horvath, who served as NDP leader since 2009. Mamakwa says he's looking forward to working with Stiles and educating her about the issues in this region.
Within the next few months, we're going to be traveling the north and hopefully to get her to see the real Ontario. The overcrowding, the suicide crisis, the boil water advisories. It's just not acceptable in this day and age when it's 2023, where you have 28 years of boil water advisories is unacceptable, and I think it's important for her to see it in person.
Mamakwa adds that he believes Stiles is a leader who can make positive change in Ontario. Stay tuned, we'll have a story about Little Band's hockey tournament after the break. Welcome back. Well, the Little Band's Native Youth Hockey Tournament was back in Dryden after a 2-year hiatus. 38 teams from First Nations around the north descended on Dryden last week for the much-anticipated event. And as Lee Noonan tells us, the tournament is about more than fun and games.
The atmosphere at the Dryden Memorial Arena was raucous, and never more so than in the final game as Round Lake scored a tie-breaking goal with only seconds on the clock, cinching the Under-18 championship. In every division, players were thrilled to bring home the gold.
Happy, because we won. I just played hard.
And what about the rest of the team?
They tried their best too.
We won A-side, and I could have done it without, everybody.
With some traveling hundreds of kilometers to play or to support their home team, the Little Bends tournament is about more than just hockey glory.
I talked about those issues, those boredom issues within the communities. They're spending a lot of their days throughout the summer, spring, whatever, doing nothing. That Little Bends is like Christmas time to them. So, it's everything, and it's saving lives. It's doing everything imaginable that we can't even comprehend.
For the Round Lake senior girls team, victory was bittersweet. They're excited to bring home the championship trophy, but they're also grieving 2 teammates lost over the past year.
We did good. We kept with the game, and we kept playing for our late teammates. Choose life.
Event organizer Ziggy Beardy says it's good to be back after being shut down due to COVID and travel restrictions the past 2 years.
There's hundreds of people here, fans, and mostly players, though. 3 years ago, I should say, we had 74 teams. Now we have 38. We're slowly coming up again, but it's still a good tournament. Everyone is enjoying themselves here, as you can see.
Organizers are hopeful that the event will continue growing and rebounding from COVID, and that more and more teams will be able to come out and play next year at Little Bands. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The popular experimental fishery that used to attract hundreds of ice fishers to Squires Lake each March is returning this winter for the first time since 2016. The Ministry of Natural Resources started studying the fish sanctuary there in 1985, offering people a chance to catch fish and have fun while helping the M&R collect valuable data. Squires Lake is located about 90 minutes west of Thunder Bay off Highway 11 near Cashabowie. At one point, the ministry had to use a lottery system for participants due to the high demand, but the turnout eventually began to drop and the fishery was closed to all anglers 7 years ago. This year's Squires Lake fishing event will take place between March 11th and 19th. The number of anglers on the lake each day will be limited, and the maximum fishing party size is 5 people. Participants must register online in advance, but the fishing event is free of charge. Canadian Geographic has named an Atikokan photographer their 2022 Canadian Photographer of the Year. He'll bring home a $5,000 grand prize and sees his image published in Canadian Geographic magazine. Amateur photographer Alan Polam did not expect to win the top prize. In fact, he forgot he submitted anything at all. But his photos, especially this one of a lynx, impressed the Canadian Geographic judges who chose his submission from more than 6,400 entries. When he's not out shooting, Polam works as a therapist and mental health manager at the hospital.
It's a very grounding and mindful experience, photography, so it's something that kind of brings you in nature and takes you out of some of the stresses of daily life. And although it's just kind of a temporary thing and more of distraction technique, it's still something that is helpful. And it also builds on self-confidence for people as well, not just for photography, but any hobbies that you love to do and feel passionate about, I think.
Polam says wildlife photography can be trickier in areas like Atikokan, where animals are wary of hunters. He plans to use his prize money to travel more. Polam's winnings photos will be published in the March-April issue of Canadian Geographic. A new exhibit at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery features some impressive works from talented students at Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School. Their pieces are being paired with works from the gallery's private collection, creating a unique and stunning experience. Vasilios Bellos reports.
It's an incredible opportunity for some very talented Dennis Franklin Cromartie art students who are featured in the newest exhibition at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. Andy Zayak, or Where Are You Going?, opened up at the beginning of the month. It all sparked from student visits to the gallery's permanent collection, with each student being able to select one of those works to be featured with their own in the exhibition.
It's been a big part of my life. Like growing up, I was really into art and crafts.
Grade 12 student Akota Quill says being able to look at that permanent collection was an inspiring experience, especially considering many people never get that opportunity.
It was amazing, seeing all the art and how they're all so much older than I am, and they're still being cared for, that's amazing. That could be one of my pieces someday.
There was an opening night event for the students who were able to show off their work for the first time to the public. Tessa Harper is a grade 11 art student at DFC and explains how rewarding that experience was.
I think the greatest part of it was they were looking at it because they wanted to, because they thought it was cool, that it looked nice, and not because they didn't know I was standing there.
Harper goes on to say this experience so far has provided her the confidence to continue improving her craft as an artist.
Have people encourage me for it as a result of seeing the things that I can create, it makes me want to continue doing my best.
Getting to see people fall in love with art and see that they can create something and then see their skills progress because they're doing so much artwork day in and day out. And they don't even realize sometimes how far they've come till they look back at the artwork that they started with.
It only takes a few steps into the new exhibit here at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery to recognize the talent and the taste that students at DFC have. And for those who do want to check it out, there is still time, with the exhibit closing on March 19th. Vasilios Bellos, TVT News.
And that wraps up this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.